Hey everyone, David McElwain here at our offices at Bali and Beyond, and I just want to introduce my friend Alex Ford.
Hi guys.
Alex and I go back about a long way, 5-6 years.
I can tell you, it was, I did my men's weekend in April of 2011.
Wow. So just before that?
Would have been,
Yeah.
within weeks.
Within weeks before that. So we've known each other for 7 years, and I've watched Alex grow and change. But ever since the very beginning, from the very first time that I met him, I knew that he was was destined for greatness, and had more than just a plan. He had he was driven, and so maybe in some days no plan, just driven.
a few of those.
So lots of changes. But for me, what I noticed with Alex is that his primary thing was growth, was learning and just learning not just about information, but about how to tap into the source and how to find that spot where the creativity came from, and that's a lot of why I wanted Alex to be part of our very first interview in what I'm calling Project Awakening, and because he's more than recognizes that business is about tapping into that creative source, and I'm not even sure if Alex meditates. Do you meditate, Alex?
Every day.
Alex meditates. I should have.
Surprise.
I should have known. So that's in my belief. That's how we get to tap into the source. Yes, having a vision, knowing a direction, and then sitting and feeling and listening to the messages that come. And so, Alex, tell us a bit about your background and how this all came to be, and we'll get to what you're doing right now, but yeah.
About me?
Where did the drive come from?
Where did the drive come from? Well, my dad mostly, I would say. I am a only child from an upper middle class white family in Canada. So I'm basically that category of individual who, on a world stage, has it pretty easy, had it pretty easy. I don't know if I have it easy anymore, but my predominant circumstances in life have been a circumstance of being well supported by my parents and well supported by my society. Went to school. I don't have conflict happening. We don't have people shelling our communities. We're a pretty stable nation. Mm-hmm. And I was born in 1988, which was the year of the Olympics in Calgary. And that was also, we were a pretty strong oil town. That first 15 years of my life, it's we were just a strong economy, a strong town. I had no sense of, any recession. I had no sense of economic hardship, none of that. So I grew up having access to, whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. Really, if I wanted something. There was not a time that the fridges weren't stocked and I could have my friends over and everything else. In school, I was too smart for my own good, and I have authority issues. So,
I've noticed all of this.
Oh, it's noticeable. What ended up happening is I would never really be the delinquent, but I would be with the delinquents. You're the delinquent in our relationship. Okay?
Clearly.
So that's the role I play. I became a master at being a part of the show without having to be the show. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I'm not the show, but I get to be in the show. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of just that's kind of the context. Contextually, we all have our own hero's journey, right? And my hero's journey is kind of built on a story that I've manufactured out of my experience with my father, which is that he was a pharmacist he was the associate pharmacist for Shoppers Drug Mart in Forest Lawn here in Calgary. And basically, from the time I was a kid to the time that he retired, which is the first 12 or 13 years of my life, he was horribly overworked. Alberta law says that if you have posted pharmacy hours, you must have a pharmacist. And so Shoppers Drug Mart has pharmacies open till midnight. It's the busiest pharmacy in the city at the time. And so my experience of my father can be summed up in the Instagram photo that I posted a few weeks ago, which is a pen and a highlighter drawing of my father with a speech bubble that only says, ah, like he just yelling. And so like my perception of his life was that he suffered growing up. I didn't have like clear language for it. I don't know that I ever even articulated it to myself until looking back on my life. And I don't know. I started working with him really, really young. I started working with him as Santa's little helper and stocking shelves when I was like 5. I was punching a time card at Shoppers Drug Mart working. And I don't know if I wanted to work to be with him because he wasn't like a major part of my life. It's like at home, it was me and my mom. He was at work. I worked till midnight all the time, right? I'm a kid. I go to bed at 7 or 8 or whatever. So I wanted to work with my dad. And that was the way that I ended up being able to spend time with him. And so, you know, I developed an ethic of work being something that you just do and not something you necessarily got to enjoy early in life. And I have this one particularly vivid memory because the antiparticle to that whole situation was that he would work, but when he wasn't working, he would take us on holidays. So I'd been to Hawaii, like, by the time I was 20, I'd been to Hawaii, like, to Hawaii, Orlando, like a few other places, mostly Hawaii, like 20 times. So I grew up with like this sense of holidays being something that were begrudged, because when we would go on holiday, what would happen is my dad would shift from the way of being that he was at home to the way of being that he was on holiday, which was, now we're on austerity. Right? So we go from, it's like this totally polarized thing. I'm like, it doesn't seem like we're suffering. We have money. We're like, we have a family, but my dad is like, hates his life. Doesn't appear to enjoy it. I feel like he's suffering. I never get access to him. And then we go on holidays and he can't even enjoy it. So it's like, he didn't get the benefit on either side of that equation. And I think that basically that experience formed my primary drive in life, which is to help people find a greater meaning so that they can turn their work into art, so that it's not like something they have to suffer through, right? Like, I really believe in helping people find opportunities to step into activities and work and rituals of meaning that reflect a sense of who they are and reflect a sense of what's important to them, so that they can like have their cake and eat it too. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of where I came from. I started my first business when I was 12, and basically from that moment on, I've been an entrepreneur. I went through the motions of school, went through the motions of university, failed out after 2 years. And I've just been dedicated to building a business that serves entrepreneurs and business owners and finding their story and acquiring leads and hopefully scaling a business that matters to them. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how I see that in our relationship, you know, you've been so adamant about me finding the passion in it. You know, what is it you're doing?
Yeah.
You know, and we first started working together a couple of years ago, and I had a couple of businesses, and I didn't love one of them. And even the Bali business that I had, you know, I hadn't found my niche in it, you know, and since then I have, and I let the other business go. It was a real, you know, transition. The whole world had to collapse so that I could do that.
It was a bit of a cathartic moment.
Yes, and let the other business go, and somebody else has got it who loves it.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. But you were a really big part of that. You were, you know, like, okay, you know, let's get down to what really means something to you. And if that's what you're giving to or helping other businesses discover, that's a big deal. You know.
I think a lot of business owners maybe even start there and then they lose it. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody starts a business because they think it's going to be fun. like you start a business because it means something.
Okay.
And then what happens is it gets to a point where the meaning is gone. We get washed out by distractions, and we get washed out by other people's agendas, and we get washed out by ideas of grandeur and money and all this capitulation. And I think that, like, there's, you know, people get trapped. I think, you know, how long have you been doing this? Like 20 years or something?
No, 9.
9? Well, okay. It started at a place, it had meaning.
Yeah.
Right? And
No
so for
question.
you to even say, like, it didn't have meaning, but it did at one time.
Yeah.
So it's like the journey back to the breath in meditation. I think the same thing applies in our sense of purpose and identity in life. And as a business owner, coming back to the breath means coming back to the purpose. Like, why am I doing this? Right? Because it's so easy to get pulled away.
Yeah, yeah. With what I'm doing now, and I've discovered this whole thing around creating meditation spaces for people. I'm so like it's it. I got it. You know, and bundling. Last year we talked about it quite a bit. You know, you should put packages together, but it wasn't on the theme of meditation. And now, we've been able to put those together, and it's such a. I mean, everybody wants to meditate, and they just need a space. So we're going to create those spaces, and I thank you for helping me get there to that place. So, teachers, books. Tell me. Who's been? I know you've spent the last 7-8 years since I've known you studying with a number of different teachers, and who would you say has been really instrumental or
I keep a list actually of like mentors or people who've made an impact on me. My short list, like how many? I've got a list of like 30.
Wow.
But I mean like 5, top 5. Yeah. In no order. They're all number ones, like in their own way. Tony Horton, P90X.
Okay, yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, Gary's crazy.
Yeah, Grant Cardone.
Yes.
John DeMartini.
Yes. One of my favorites.
It's hard to pick, right? Who would be the 5th? Let's leave it at that. Those 4 are good for now.
So do you know who I'm spending a lot of time with lately? Is Napoleon Hill.
Okay, so I'm buying more copies of all my books. Now my team is reading them. Think and Grow Rich. Everett's reading it, so I wanted to read it. So I just literally showed up this morning.
Really?
Yeah, Napoleon Hill's probably up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's, one of the foundation stones.
I read his book every year, so that's probably a wise addition. Yeah.
Yeah. It's for me, what's happening with Napoleon Hill is that there's so much now on YouTube.
Oh, is there? Well, his lectures and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to some of those.
And they're great, and I'll listen to them sometimes over and over again. And Gary, has new video every day.
Gary, I show up. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm at a point. It's so saturated. It's like I listen to everyone else, and then if I have time left, I listen to Gary because Gary's always gonna fucking be there, and he always says the same stuff. So
yeah.
But I mean, it's timely, and there's the thing about Gary is he'll share nuggets. Like it's like 85 or 90% the same stuff, but there's 10% where it's like practical and tactical.
Yeah, it's wow.
That it's like, oh, there's a data point hidden in this 45-minute keynote, and it's worth the wait almost every time.
Yeah, his interviews are great.
Yeah.
And the people that show up.
Yeah.
And he gives them little pieces, and they say, just go do that.
Yeah.
And you can see they're running out the door to do that, and he's folks really like him.
It's really practical. He's really practical.
Yeah.
And he listens to each person, so he genuinely cares.
Yeah.
I think.
So you've named some teachers. I know you spent a lot of time with John DeMartini.
A lot of time and money. A lot of time and money. More money than time, probably.
Yeah. Well.
But a lot of time, yeah.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah. Would you say he's a friend?
Am I allowed?
Yes.
Is that a thing? He's probably my friend.
Yeah.
I'd say we're friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I should say I'm his student, right? But I think I've been successful in developing a friendship. Yeah.
Yeah. I think friends are, does he care about you?
Yeah.
Yes. And do you care about him? And yeah, I think that's clear. And I never, thought of him so much as a friend till one night you suggested I just call him. And I had a situation, and I just called him, and he picked up. And,
That's true. I did. Yeah.
And we had a great talk, and he went boom right into what was happening, and he it sounded like the little issue I was having, he probably dealt with 1,000 times with other people, and he went right there, and he said, this thing with your mom that you think you've dealt with, well, you haven't, and so it was razor sharp. I really encourage folks to spend time with John?
I'm interviewing him this month
Wow.
on April 25th. We'll be streaming it live online also. And yeah, I'll be blessed to have him on stage at one of the first episode of a new show I'm launching.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And where's that going to be?
Cardell Theatre, here in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And room for, is it like 250?
120 people,
Okay.
probably 100 people maybe.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, I want to help people. Like, one of the things I think we all get a little lost in is detail. And there's an art and a science in getting back to first principles. Like, everything's built on principles. And especially with so much content, like this is content, right? There's so much content out there in the layers that are so far beyond principles. Like, you could circle and circle and never find it, you know? And John is especially gifted at applying the context of first principles thinking. He shares principles. You can apply those principles across broad spectrums of life. So it's one of the reasons I think he's such an amazing teacher.
So I have a question about daily practices.
Okay.
You know, what do you do?
Okay, so I have 3 rituals that I do daily. I have a morning ritual, an afternoon ritual, and an evening ritual, like a bedtime ritual. The morning ritual is the most intense of the 3. I get up at 4:35 or 5:30, depending on the day. 4:30 is on Mondays and Thursdays. 5 every other day, except the weekends where I sleep into 5:30.
You're a keener.
Lately,
Yes.
you know, so
Focus. Yep.
I wake up and I brush my teeth, and then I drink a glass of water with grated frozen lemon.
Wow.
And then I make coffee, and then I meditate for 20 minutes. I read nonfiction education for 20 minutes. And then I journal and scribe my gratitude for 20 minutes. And then I do as much of the DeMartini method as I can on whatever the most important trigger, charge, challenge, trait, or unclear perception that
So
I've
you do a
got going on.
breakthrough.
I very rarely get a whole line. I'm just continually working away at wherever I'm at.
Wow.
15 minutes. Once I'm done that, I then exercise. I do it's called foundation training, which is an art. It was invented by a chiropractor. It's an art of breath in the upper lungs and the elongation of the spine. It's a decompression activity, and it's also about strengthening all of the core muscle groups that are related to posture, because the person with the greatest posture and the strongest posture rules the room. So I spend, depending on the exercise, 6 to 15 minutes there. Then I have a shower, which always ends in a cold shower, and then
Cold shower.
Yeah.
1 minute, 2 minutes.
30 seconds.
Yes.
Then I weigh myself, I get dressed, and then I organize my highest priority activities for the day in priority, and then I go to stand-up, which is every morning at work we do
So you're done
stand-up.
all this by about 7?
7:38. Like, it's a 3-hour thing probably.
Wow.
On Thursdays, I cut everything in half because I go from 4:30. I have a 6 a.m. meeting, so I fit it all in an hour and a half. But like today, I was done by 7:45. It takes about 3 hours.
Alex, what time do you go to bed?
9:30.
Wow.
So then the afternoon, 4 o'clock,
Listen to this, you guys.
I do exercise, like
Key to success.
30 minutes of P90X3
At night?
every single day, 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And then I take my vitamins.
Yes.
That's the afternoon. And then in the evening, I drink tea, Tim Ferriss recipe, tea with organic apple cider vinegar and raw unpasteurized honey. I do my evening gratitude and journaling. I brush my teeth, floss, prepare my clothing for the next day, focus love and gratitude on Jennifer, and then I read fiction for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I sleep.
Fiction.
Fiction at nighttime, because otherwise, if you read nonfiction at nighttime, it really fires your brain up in all of the wrong ways.
Oh, really?
I'd be up.
So fiction's a little relaxed.
Yeah, storytelling.
Yes.
And it helps. Like, I learn actually a lot from fiction. it like takes the mind into sort of unexplored territories, right? So
Yeah. So this journey, you know, really since I've known you in the last 7 or 8 years, where do you think, like, obviously things have changed for you. You know, you've got a team, a growing team, and a growing business. Where was the turning point? Where?
I've had turning points.
Yes.
I mean, there's been three or four moments in my life where I've had to go all in, just like take all my chips and put them in. Today is one of them, actually.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, you know, it's like sort of like, it's not a casino because like I'm a wise, strategic, well-planned business owner.
Yes.
But it still feels like the fucking cortisol and the adrenaline and the dopamine of pushing all your chips in. It doesn't have to be a gamble. You're right, that the feeling is still there. Those moments are surprisingly non-transformative. I don't know if you've had the same thing, but those moments have not been any of the turning points. Those moments have been purely a reflection of my own discipline and my own commitment. And they've helped me more than any actual turning point, probably. Okay. Turning points for me, I see them as like lagging metrics. It's like I've made decisions in the past and they all seem to line up at once like a set of waves on the beach, and things change. But in those moments, I have no control. It's just like happening. Yeah. And then there's moments where there could be no momentum. It could be nothing else in the no magic feeling going on in the business. But I have to make a decision that represents who I am. It's like identity shaping moments. And in those moments, surprisingly, it's not about a major change. So I like to look at them kind of separate, right? There's moments where it's like, okay, am I going to do the thing that's right for my organization? Am I going to do the thing that's scary AF and like take a leap of faith into myself? And then there's moments where it's like, oh my God, all of these things have come together. And so from that perspective, there's been a few different moments. We've just had one. We just invested in media broadcasting infrastructure. And
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And we're now in a position to, I really believe, capitalize on a gold rush that people haven't figured out yet. I see this absolutely clear line of sight to a shift in entrepreneurialism and business marketing and advertising towards produced media and video.
Audience.
It's not enough anymore to just do like your Facebook Lives on your camera. People want to be entertained. There's so much information and so much content being produced. Yep. The differentiator is going to become production value. I think that's true. And we've somehow ended up in a place where, because of my skill set in IT, some developments in media broadcasting infrastructure have moved traditional audio, video, and media broadcasting from proprietary audio-visual into the network. So we're now we have a broadcast studio set up right now in my basement, which is entirely built on a network, like a computer network. And the latencies are no different than you'd have on produced video, like cabling and infrastructure. And what's happened with that is that means all of a sudden you can have many video sources and many output sources, and they're no longer a one-to-one relationship. And the cost or the barrier to entry to get into that has come down by like a factor of 100 times in the last 5 years. And so like I'm capitalizing on that, and we're gonna blow up. So that's one. Another one was when I chose to...
I know that. I'm in. I got it. Yeah. And this is... Yes.
It's where we're going. And so like I'm blessed to be in the position where I've seen that coming.
Yes.
But I listened to people. I listened to Brendan Burchard in 2012 when he said you have to build these video what's a video funnel? At the time it was like, oh, he releases a video every few days and you go through this thing and it's innovative. Now it's like whatever, everybody's doing funnels. But it's like at the time that was a big thing. So I bought the lighting and I was doing video filming on my iPhone, and then we bought cameras, we bought this, we bought this, we bought this, and what I have found is our approach is to be incremental. I don't wait until I have the $50,000 to buy the infrastructure. I bought 4,000 of it 8 years ago, and then I bought another 10,000 3 or 4 years ago, and then I bought, we just invested another $15,000. It's just, we're just investing, and now all of a sudden we can capitalize. Yeah. And so there was that. There was also the moment I met John. I met John in April 2011 also. And
I might have been there.
I had done a bunch of mushrooms like the year before.
Yes.
Growing up, I was very like agnostic. I'm a technologist, so it's like if you can't plug it in and prove to me it's working, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
Like that's who I was. And then my commune and I had 7 roommates. We all did mushrooms and that fucked me up. Like I just became a different person. My whole personality changed. I became open to a sense of spiritualism, and I joined this personal development 8-week program with Selena Wright.
Who I know super, super well.
And the last thing we did, the last thing was called the passion test.
Yes.
And one of the things I wrote down, the number one thing on my passion test that I wanted to learn about was how to listen to and follow my intuition.
Wow.
It was written on a card, posted by in my bathroom. 2 weeks later, Douglas Vermeeren brings me to one of John's event. And I'm sure everybody feels this way when they're called by something, but I'm sitting in that audience and I'm like having my mind blown by this genius who's totally in my language because he's like hyper analytical, hyper intellectual, communicating spiritual principles, not ideas and concepts.
Not dogma.
And he looks me in the eyes and he says, if your intuition is telling you to come, come. I'm like, fuck. So anyways, that all lined up and that changed my life. I dropped $250,000 over the next 2 years, following him around the planet, digesting his entire curriculum, making it my mission to master his work and apply his principles. And, from there. There's some other times, like the time I closed down my business and started over, sort of one of those necessary moments, I think.
I remember that.
More than the fun times, Cool. There was 7 months ago, I stood in a field and I said, I'm going to hire a videographer I probably can't afford and we're going to see what happens. And I just took a risk.
Yes.
And that's paid dividends for us.
Yes.
My whole life changed the minute I hired a video guy to follow me around full time.
Yeah.
And it actually has nothing to do with the marketing. It's entirely about what I've learned about myself.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know, I could probably find a bunch more, but that was a big one.
So, 2 more questions. One, where are you going from here? And then what's the message you want to give to folks about how they can get in touch with you? How they can be part of what you do?
Like many of you, I'm sure, and like you, I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to figure out my story. I didn't even have the language for the concept of your story until, let's say, 3 or 4 months ago when I heard of Hank Norman through Grant Cardone. Hank Norman runs a program called Star Power. He's like a big media producer. He understands how to make people famous. He's a big guy. Or he's one of the big players behind Grant Cardone's brand.
Love Grant.
And Hank was like, listen, you gotta take your pain and turn it into power. You gotta find your story. And so I just I took that language and it sort of started to shift in my mind. I mean, functionally, I help business owners scale their organizations by applying proven strategic planning frameworks, proven marketing and advertising initiatives, campaign strategies, whatever you want to call it. We build funnels, we build online web infrastructure. We can do anything any business owner would ever want to do as it relates to AV, media broadcasting, or technology to scale their company, including turnkey IT technical support. Like, my mission is if you're less than 100 employees strong, you need to hire a firm who can take care of business for you. There's a skill set in building businesses that most people building businesses don't have. Like, to build a business is different than to fulfill on the service of your business. To sell retail is different than to build a retail organization. To build houses is different than to build a business that builds houses. They're actually totally separate. Doctors get 2 weeks of business training and 7 years of medical school. They're expected to run practices. Well, it takes a certain skill set to run a practice, to grow a practice.
Of course, yeah.
And I have that skill set. I'm like a Jay Abraham type of thinker. He'd be another one on my list. I can break down business systems, identify roadblocks, solve challenges, create clear strategies, break down 90-day action plans, get people congruent with BHAGs and their purpose and what their 10-year trajectories are. I can do all that.
What's a BHAG?
Big, hairy, audacious goal. We can do tech. We do all this crap, but like, why does it all matter? It doesn't, right? Unless there's someone who extracts meaning from that.
Yes.
And so, like, one of the biggest challenges any business owner faces is, how do I acquire new customers? And so we started in IT, and, IT is pretty much a functional expense for most people. It's not really appealing. I'm going to go spend $3,000 on end user support this month. Like, it's not, people don't run out to buy it. It's not a sexy product. So for the last 5 years, I've been working and building out our infrastructure to go. We have 250 end users under support in IT. And in the last 3 years, I've really made it my mission to step into digital web infrastructure management, media broadcasting, and marketing. Because all my businesses that got stable infrastructure, now they need more customers. We want to grow. And so what I've realized today is I did everything backwards in my life. Like everything that I would now prescribe to my clients, I've done just in the totally opposite order. I scaled my business, then I figured out how to acquire new leads, then I figured out my story, which is ridiculous. Like, if you're a business owner, you need to find your story, because the story is the cornerstone of your culture and your mission and your marketing. Build systems then to basically like become an evangelist for your brand and for that story. Share and distribute that in a way that other people find value or they're entertained by it. And in doing so, you're going to acquire new leads. And with those leads, you get new cash. And with that cash, you scale your business, clearly. So, someone asked me what I do. How I'd answer that today is I help business owners find their story, acquire new leads, and scale their business.
Wow.
And how we do that is by applying all of the principles that I've learned from John in terms of extracting what's most meaningful and important to a person in their behavior, in what their behavior demonstrates. That's the human behavioral side of me. Then the marketing side of me says, how do we tell that story, broadcast that, build media distribution around it, produce content channels for it, share that with the world. And then how do we basically capture those leads using technology and scale an organization according to a plan that's also congruent with that mission. For me, my story that I have found is, it's sort of smacked me in the face in the last week. I'm so good at so many things, it's hard for me to know who I am. Like, put me behind a camera, I can do that. Put me under your desk to fix your computer, I can do that. Tell me to do your accounting, I'll balance it to the penny, right? Tell me you need to figure out legal agreements, I'll have a contract written in 48 hours. Because I did it backwards. I had to do all that crap that wasn't me. I figured it all out, got really good at it because of my work ethic. But if you were to ask me like who I am, what I do for people is I help people tell stories. I'm a storyteller. I don't want to be the story. I like to tell the story. I like to help people express a story. I like to package people into, I want to turn your life into a story.
So that's where we started with Media Delinquent.
How do we package this and make it entertaining?
Yes.
Right? I mean, people want to be entertained. There's value in that. And if you can entertain them and serve them, that's even better.
Yes.
And if you can help people entertain them and make a measurable impact on their life and move them forward, then that's the best. And that's what all business owners, I think, are trying to do.
Like my meditation spaces. Awesome.
Yeah. So
how do they get in touch with you?
we have a daily video blog, so I don't know where you're posting this, but if you're on Facebook, you can look me up. Alexander Ford is my page. We run a daily video, well, it's not daily because we're so fucking busy, but daily video blog. You can also just hit me up on Messenger or go to my website, alexanderw4.com. My company's name is Measurable Genius. You can look that up too. We're around. If you Google either of those things, you'll find us.
Awesome. Well, Alex, this has been great.
Thank you.
This is, like I said, our first interview, and I think it's been a great one. Tons of information, and I love it when you get going, and really, and so when we leave here, I want to show you what I'm doing with my meditation spaces. I got the kits all set up for you. I want you to see those, and all that you've said about the story. But that's it. I got it, and I think that if more businesses get that, they may shift their whole business.
So, we have clients. They're like, "What do I post on social media?" I'm like, "Well, you kind of have to do things in your life. You have to tell a story, what's going on for you." Yeah. So you have to manufacture it. Yeah. We're running an event. Okay, here's an example. I'm running an event, April 25th. If you're in Calgary, come check it out. MeasurableGenius.com, live stream live.
Wednesday night?
Wednesday night. Yeah, it's 2 hours. It's business networking and education. It's going to be a show. Yeah. It's a show. I'm going to interview John DeMartini. It's going to help business owners. You'll walk away knowing something.
Much fun.
Yeah, it'll be a show.
Yeah.
It'll be a show. He's a show.
Yeah, and it's a great space too.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's I just decided to do it. I'm just fuck it. Let's just do it. Let's have an event. And guess what? I have a month worth of marketing now. What do I post content about? How about the show? How about the show? Just do an event, do a thing, have a barbecue.
Yeah.
Do an interview.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming and taking this time out of your day and trusting us that we make this happen. And I'm really pleased that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, cheers. Give me a squeeze.
All right.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Wow.